Hi guys, today I'm going to teach you how to make a Python program to see if you like Star Wars or Star Trek better. I have already made my code and I will just run it for you so you can see how it works. First, it asks us if you'd rather use a lightsaber or a phaser. And you can type L for lightsaber or P for phaser. So I would pick L. And then it'd say, would you rather fly the Death Star or Enterprise? And then, as you can see, you can just pick for all the choices. And then, once you're finished, it will tell you if you like Star Trek or Star Wars better. For me, it says that my Star Trek points were 1 and Star Wars points were 3, because I only entered a Star Trek thing here. So it says that I like Star Wars better than Star Trek. So this is actually a more difficult program, but I'll just show you what I did here. And you can even make one yourself, and you don't even have to make it for Star Wars or Star Trek. You can do it for other things too. So first up here, I made a variable called Star Wars points. And I said equal to 0 because up here they haven't answered anything yet, so we don't need to make it be any number because they haven't chose a Star Wars thing or Star Trek thing. So we said equal to 0 and we set Star Trek points equal to 0. So these are two variables, and they're Star Wars points and Star Trek. The next line is, this is, as you can see in my last video, we got input from users. So this we called it lightsaber phaser to see if they would rather use a lightsaber or phaser. User to input something. So it says, would you rather use a lightsaber or a phaser? And then it said L for lightsaber and P for phaser. So then this is an if statement. I haven't taught you guys how to use if statements, but in an upcoming video, I will show you how to use if statements. So it says if lightsaber phaser, which is this right here, so it's kind of like a variable. So if it's equal to L, so that basically means if the user typed in whatever this is, then you have to put a colon at the end of that. And you have to put this in quotes, because then if we just put L right there and we ran the program, then it would give us an error. L is not defined, because if we had a variable that was named L, it would work, but since we don't, we need to put it in quotes. So when you want to say then, you put a colon. So let's review this. If we're doing an if statement, and we're saying if lightsaber phaser is equal to L, so if the user inputted this right here, then Star Wars points plus equals 1. So that's just kind of a shortcut of adding 1 to the Star Wars points, and we wanted to add 1 just to the Star Wars points because the lightsaber is from Star Wars, not from Star Trek. So we did this with the next one, if lightsaber phaser, but if it equals P phaser, then add 1 to Star Trek points because a phaser is from Star Trek. Then we basically did this whole thing again, but we did it with a different input, basically just a different input. Everything else is kind of the same. As you can see, it says Death Enterprise, so it'll probably say if they would rather fly the Death Star in the Enterprise, which it says down here, and then it says enter E for Enterprise and D for Death Star. So to how we made it work, even up here, is because if we did like enter E or P for Enterprise, and they entered in P, then it would just not show up anything because they didn't enter in one of these words that we only told them if they put that in, then add 1 to the Star Wars points. So that's why we can just put it at E. And as you can see, it's basically the same thing up here, except for we changed what we want the user to input, and we changed the input. So we did this for a lot of them, as you can see, and you could even make more if you did one, or you could make less, and you could just even make one long question if you wanted. So as you can see, we kind of did all this. I can scroll up a little bit so you can just see everything. So that's just really almost all the code for it. But down here is where things get interesting. So right here, we're using a print statement, which I taught in my first programming video. So it's telling the program to print your Star Trek points are, and then we don't want to type in like your Star Trek points are 3, because we don't know if it's 3 or not. They could have only had 2 Star Trek points. So that's why we had to put a comma after and then a space in our variable, because up here when they entered in Star Trek things, it added 1 to their Star Trek points. So because when I ran the program, I only entered in 1 Star Trek thing, and that's why my Star Trek points were only 1. And it does the same for Star Wars points. And then for here, it's telling the computer for another if statement, and it's saying if Star Trek points are less than the Star Wars points, then print you like Star Wars better than Star Trek because you picked more Star Wars things than Star Trek things. So as you can see, I did this down here, and that's really how I coded this. And as I said, you could do it with different things, or you could do it with Star Wars and Star Trek and do different questions. Which person would you be? A Star Trek fan or a Star Wars fan? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, like, and stay tuned for my next video on if statements.